In this example, we're being asked to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form that goes through the point negative 5, 4, negative 5, negative 4, and is perpendicular to y equals negative 5 halves plus 2. So similar to writing the equation of a line that's parallel, we're going to get our info. We don't have to calculate slope. It's going to be based on the slope given in our equation. So our slope in our equation is negative 5 halves. Now, what we need to remember is that perpendicular lines intersect at right angles. So to create that on the coordinate grid, or the coordinate plane, or on a graph, we have to do two things to our slope. And it's what we call opposite reciprocals. Okay, we have to create the opposite reciprocal of the slope given. Okay, so what the heck does opposite reciprocal mean? Okay, opposite means the first thing we do, we need to change the sign. Okay, so we have to use the opposite sign of the slope given. The slope here is negative, so that means my perpendicular slope will be positive. Okay, all perpendicular lines one has to be a positive slope, the other has to be a negative slope. So that's where the opposite comes in. The second thing, the reciprocal, refers to flipping the fraction. Okay, so the reciprocal means the numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. Okay, so instead of 5 halves, my reciprocal is 2/5. Okay, so for all perpendicular lines on a coordinate plane, the slopes, you'll notice, are opposites. The slopes are opposite of one another. One's positive, one's negative. And the slope itself are reciprocals of one another. So you notice in my red slope, in the slope given, I have 5 halves. The reciprocal of that is putting my denominator of 2 in my numerator. So 5 halves becomes 2/5. So that is how we determine the slope of a perpendicular line. Now, while I won't do question 22 in its entirety, what I do want to show you is that with the case of a fraction like this, 1/2, negative 1/2, obviously the opposite of negative is positive. And when I take the reciprocal of 1/2, I get 2/1, which is just positive 2. So don't forget, if you're ever given a whole number, you can create a fraction by putting any whole number over 1. So what we have here is 1/2 becomes 2/1. If you were given, let's say you were given the whole number 3, the perpendicular slope would be negative 1/3. Need the opposite sign, and I get that 1 in the numerator because I can write any whole number as a fraction by putting it over 1. So that's just a little recap on opposite reciprocal slopes for perpendicular lines. So now that I have that, I have my slope now, I can now work on finding my y-intercept, or my b. So we've been working with y equals mx plus b, or my slope-intercept form, this entire time. And as with all the other examples, I need to fill in my values for m, x, and y. Okay? So because I want to write the equation line that's perpendicular to the one I'm given, I'm going to use my opposite reciprocal slope as my m. So my m is going to be 2/5. And my x and my y values come from the coordinate, or the point that the line that we want to draw the line through. So x is -5, y is -4. Okay. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is multiply my m and my x, because I need to solve for b, okay? We're always solving for a new y-intercept when we're writing the equation of a line. So, and don't forget, when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. So I'm going to get -10 times 5. The 2 times the -5 gives me the -10. The 5 times the 1 gives me the 5. Okay? And of course, -10 divided by 5 is a -2. So my last step to solve for b is I need to add 2 to both sides to get b by itself. And so my y-intercept is a -2, because -4 plus 2 is -2. So the equation of my line is 2/5 x minus 2. Now let's take a look at the equation we were originally given. Was y equals -5/2. Okay. So let's just want to take a look at here. These lines are perpendicular because I have, although we don't obviously write the positive sign, it is positive. So one's positive, one's negative. And the slopes are reciprocals of each other, where we flip that fraction. Okay. Let me now show you how to solve the same problem using our graph. Okay. So the point we go through is -5, -4. And my equation was y equals -5/2 x plus 2. Okay. So step number 1 is always plot our point. So -5 is 5 to the left and 4 down. Okay, so that's -4, -5, -4. And remember, it's the perpendicular line we're looking for. All right, so based on the slope given to me, that -5/2, I know that any line perpendicular to this line will have an opposite reciprocal slope. Or, remember, opposite signs flipped fraction. That's what opposite reciprocal means. So this is the perpendicular, and that upside down t is the symbol for perpendicular. So the perpendicular slope that I'm going to count with is the positive 2/5. So that means I'm going to count up 2 and to the right 5, because that's my rise over run. So I'm going to count up 2 and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember, we count till we reach the y-axis, because that is what b equals. B equals my y-intercept, or that point where the line crosses the y-axis. So we have our equation, y equals, and when you write your final answer, we're using the slope we counted with, 2/5 x minus 2. Okay, and just to give you a visual, let me graph the original line that we started with. So y-intercept at 2, and we had, my slope is negative 5/2, so I'm going to count down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the right 2. And if you'll notice right here, there's our, and if my red line was drawn better, this is how we get those perpendicular lines, or where they intersect at a right angle.